this video, we're going to be breaking down 6 players in fantasy football right now that if they're on your team, you want to try and trade them away as soon as possible. Now, these guys might not be the worst players, but you can try and sell them before their value only decreases as the year goes on. Because there's some trends that are alarming, and we can start with Alvin Kamara of the Saints, who, look, he just had his arguably worst fantasy usage and outing since like 2022. Let me explain. This dude went out there in week 3 when the New Orleans Saints got blown out by the Seahawks, a tough defense, 18 carries, 42 yards, only averaging 2.3 yards per carry, doesn't find the end zone. That alone is very alarming, right? He's inefficient on the ground for a 30-year-old running back in a bad offense. But let's scroll down. Okay, Chris Olave, 10 catches, Juwan Johnson, 6, Rashid Shaheed, 4. Where is Alvin Kamara? 3 for Brandon Cooks, 2 for Jack Stoll. Alvin Kamara catches just 1 ball for 14 yards on 2 targets. This dude only had 2 targets and 1 catch in this game. He's been notoriously known, especially in these blowouts, for just being like a check down merchant. And here's where the real concern starts to come in. These are his game logs so far this year. This is week 1, just 2 targets. Week 2, 6 targets. Week 3, this past week, like we just showed you, 2 targets. So he now has 2 or fewer targets in 2 out of 3 games this year. Why is that concerning? That has not happened. He has not seen a game with just 2 targets once, basically since 2023, let alone 2 times in a 3-game span. He's never seen that in his career. You can check out Ryan Heath's tweet right here. Alvin Kamara has now failed to reach a 5% target share in 2 of his 3 games this season. That previously has only happened 1 other time across Alvin Kamara's active games from 2021 to 2024. So in a 3 to 4 year span, he didn't hit a target share of 5% once in a 3 to 4 year span. So far this year, he's done it in 2 out of 3 games. This is a major concern. I mean, it's a concern for a few reasons. You have a new coach. Alvin Kamara himself is getting older. You have a new quarterback in Spencer Rattler who's not looking to check it down, who's looking to throw the ball downfield. Let me take you back to 2024. These are the game logs. Just focus on the targets right here, right? 5, 3. And you'll notice as you scroll through these, 8. This is the reason why Alvin Kamara was a top 10 and number 1 overall fantasy running back. 6, 5. His fewest targets in 2024 in a game was 4. Fast forward to 2023, 14 targets. Let's keep scrolling here. 5, right? His worst games basically are just these 5 target, 8 target games. Then in the final week of the season, where he only plays part of the snaps, right? He only goes out there and plays 30% of the snaps because the game doesn't matter. He only sees 2 targets. So in a game where Alvin Kamara has fully started, he has not seen fewer than 3 targets until this year, since 2022. And again, this is a guy on a bad offense. They're literally heading into week 4, 17.5-point underdogs, one of the largest underdogs in the past 10 years against the Buffalo Bills. Like, he's not going to have a lot of situations where he's going to get 20 carry games. He himself does not look all that efficient right now as a runner. He's only averaging 3.7 yards per carry, 35th amongst running backs. When you factor in his receptions this year, which again, there's not a ton of them, 7 or 8 receptions, just 3.9 yards per touch, 40th in the NFL. He's been wildly inefficient as a runner and wildly inefficient as a receiver. He's not breaking tackles like he used to right now. Sure, he might have had 1 or 2 flashy plays in week 2, but for the most part, he doesn't look good. The offense doesn't look good. They're not checking it down to him as much. This is a big concern. And then you just factor in that, like, overall, this offense, when you look through it, led by Spencer Rattler, who knows if it's going to be the rookie Tyler Shuck at some point, it's not a good offense. We already know that. Even though they're throwing the 3rd most times per game, 121 pass attempts right now because they're trailing in games, they're typically throwing the ball downfield at this point. They're not picking up rushing yards. They're barely getting any passing yards, less than 200 per game right now. So when you look at it, Alvin Kamara still has a big enough name where you could probably get some trades done. These are trades that have happened over the last 24 hours. Rome Odunze is crazy. He's a top 24 player rest of season in my rest of season rankings in the Fantasy Blueprint. You can check it out at jointheblueprint.com. Trey McBride's a top 20 player. McConkey's a top 30 player. CeeDee Lamb, even though he's hurt, he's still a top 30 player. All these guys, even Tedero McMillan I'm trading. Devontae Adams, you can see his name popping up here. I want all these guys over Alvin Kamara right now. Go get them immediately while you still can before he has another bad game against a 17-point underdog Buffalo Bills. Trade Alvin Kamara. And while you still can, trade Chuba Hubbard, because look, Chuba Hubbard, let's be honest here, when you look at his game logs right now, he's just completely being used, or he's being propped up by usage in garbage time, right? This past week in week 3, 17 carries in a 30-0 blowout, 73 yards, 4 yards per carry. You might look at that and go, oh, that's not that bad. You look at the fact that he has 2 receptions as well. So he's seeing 19 touches in this game, and you say to yourself, not bad. But then you look at the box score, he didn't find the end zone, so he only had 8.6 fantasy points, and there's a good chance moving forward he doesn't find the end zone a lot. More on that in a second. But in the first 2 weeks, he did find the end zone, and he was a top 10 running back in each of those first 2 games. So if he's on your fantasy team, you're like, oh, this guy's amazing, right? But these 2 touchdowns were in absolute garbage time. For the most part in these contests, he was seeing like his normal 15, 16 overall touches. He's getting 4, 4.5 yards per carry. Like, none of that stuff is terrible by any means, but slowly behind the scenes, the usage is looking worse because of this man right here, Rico Dowdle, the former Dallas Cowboys running back who had over 1,300 yards last year with the team. Then they did not re-sign him, and the Carolina Panthers got Rico Dowdle for a steal, only like $3 or $4 million per year, compared to Chuba Hubbard, who they're paying over $10 million per year based on his contract extension last year. Right now, Rico Dowdle is quietly eating into the workload of Chuba Hubbard. We'll show you exactly where he's eating into it, but this is a big deal because Chuba Hubbard last year, he showed some efficiency, but he mostly was producing because of the massive volume. This is his 2024 stats overall. He was third in snap share, 77% last year. He was fourth in opportunity share, seeing 78% of his backfield carries and targets. What did this lead to last season? Well, it led to a running back seeing 16.7 carries per game and nearly 4 targets per game. He was getting over 20 touches per game that easily ranked amongst the top 10 and almost the top 5 for all running backs in the NFL. If you're getting 20 touches per game, you're going to be valuable in fantasy football, but now he's seeing less snaps and opportunities. Or I should say a smaller opportunity share. Why is that? Well, he's playing less than 70% of the snaps now. Rico Dowdle is currently seeing 30% of the rush attempts. No running back in this backfield last year was doing that, with Jonathan Brooks banged up and Miles Sanders not producing, right? And not only that, but Rico Dowdle, especially these last 2 weeks, is getting more involved on the long down and distance as a pass catcher. He's probably the better pass catching running back in this backfield, but more importantly, as you can see from my tweet right here, Rico Dowdle quietly saw 11 touches in week 3, and more importantly, like I just happened to say right there, he's now handled all 5 of Carolina's carries inside the 10-yard line the past 2 weeks. So why is that important? Because it's going to lead to touchdowns for Rico Dowdle, just like it did this last week, where he only had 10 carries for 30 yards, but what does he do? He scores a touchdown. That did not happen in garbage time, by the way. That happened early in the game. Chuba Hubbard, the last 2 to 3 weeks, has not been seeing the red zone or goal line carries. You could tell me it's a coincidence. Maybe in week 2 I would have believed you, but once again in week 3, all 3 of those carries went to Rico Dowdle. Maybe this won't be the case for the rest of the season, but they clearly like Dowdle as the pass catching running back, and as of right now, like this goal line red zone back. And Dowdle isn't some pushover running back, right? This was a guy last year who, once he got his opportunity, had over 1,000 rushing yards, top 12 in the NFL, 250 receiving yards. He had over 1,300 total yards last year. If you're talking about fantasy football, despite playing in an offense that didn't have Dak Prescott the second half of the season, Rico Dowdle went out there and he had 12.5 fantasy points per game, right? He had to come into the year battling the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott. To end the season, Rico Dowdle was doing shit like this. I mean, look at this right here. 98 total yards, 123, 144, 149. This is your fantasy playoffs. 108, 84, right? He was a very good running back for fantasy and even in real life efficiency-wise, and now he's getting more touches in this backfield. This is a guy who, in terms of stashes for fantasy football, should be stashed, and he's a reason why I kind of want to get rid of Chuba Hubbard. He no longer looks like this great 4th or 5th round value where you got him if this guy's going to be this involved in key situations. Now again, with all the players in this video, you're not selling low on them. Only sell them if you get good value back. These are trades that have currently happened today as of this recording, not even the past 24 hours, like the past couple hours. Drake London off of a down week, yeah, go trade him for Chuba Hubbard. Jordan Mason, yeah, go trade him for Chuba Hubbard. DK Metcalf is a closer one. Devonta Smith is a closer one. Jamison Williams I want over Chuba Hubbard. Cortland Sutton, Brian Thomas, Devontae Adams, Rashee Rice, Zay Flowers. I want all these guys right now over Chuba Hubbard. I get it. Hubbard looks like a workhorse running back, 18, 19 opportunities per week. This is still a bad offense. They're coming off of a 30-0 blowout. Trade Chuba Hubbard while you still can. Now, if you want to see where Chuba Hubbard's going to rank in my top 50 overall rankings for week 4, you can check it out completely free at fantasyrankingsfree.com, or you can click the link in the description below. That will get you my free top 50 overall rankings, not just for this week, but every single week to make sure you're winning your matchups against whoever your opponents are. You smack them around each week. The link in the description or fantasyrankingsfree.com will take you to this page where you can see over 10,000 fantasy players are using this tool every single week and every single year right here. Once you enter your email, I'll send you the top 50 overall rankings. Just check your spam and promotional folders. But if you want my full top 150 rankings, waiver wire tools, my rest of season rankings for trades, and a whole lot more, including getting access to me one-on-one to ask questions, that's why I built the Fantasy Blueprint. It's what I use in all my leagues, and over 10,000 people are currently using in their leagues. If you want to learn more about the Fantasy Blueprint, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below or by heading to jointheblueprint.com. We do have limited spots available for the rest of the season, so if you want in, now's the time to join. The next player you should try and trade away if you get proper value for him is Tyreek Hill, because let's talk about Tyreek Hill, right? Like, yes, Tyreek Hill, the guy who's been great in fantasy football this year. Obviously, last year there were some downsides to him, but so far this year, after a bad week 1 where the Miami Dolphins offense looked like one of the worst offensive performances you've ever seen, and defensive performances, the last 2 weeks he's been a top 20 receiver. 16.9 points over 100 yards, 15.9 points on Thursday Night Football against the Bills, 49 yards and a touchdown in that game. Very nice to see he's seeing more downfield usage, 148 air yards, 125 air yards the last 2 weeks. But because of the fact that he's had a top 20 finish in back-to-back weeks, it is the perfect time to try and sell high on Tyreek Hill, because everything around him right now is just like so close. The straw that's about to break the camel's back, it is so close to breaking that back. But again, it's the perfect time to try and get this guy. He's coming off of a game game where he had 6 catches for 109 yards, 18.2 yards per catch. He looked like vintage Tyreek Hill in that game. And then on Thursday Night Football, prime time, everybody got to see Tyreek Hill have 4 catches, 49 yards and a touchdown, where the Dolphins kept the game close for most of that game against Buffalo before Tua Tagovailoa completely eroded, right? Tua Tagovailoa has not looked like a good quarterback this year for whatever reasons. If you're going to throw this type of a pick six, let's look at this. How do you stare down your guy, not even look anybody off, and just throw an absolute pick six to end the game with 3 minutes left when you're trying to drive? Well, sorry, it's not a pick six. Let me correct myself. It wasn't a pick six. Probably should have been a pick six if it was a faster defensive back. It was an absolute gut or just back-breaking interception that ultimately ended the game. The reason why I show that is because Tua has not been good. That's just one of the reasons. The second reason is he's missing Tyreek on downfield targets. He's not having time. I don't know if it's the concussions and being worried about being in the pocket. The offensive line is also bad, but that's just one of the reasons here. Your quarterback's not playing well, and you're currently 0-3 right now, so your coach, your play caller, Mike McDaniel, is currently on the hot seat as well. At least that's what rumors have it. And I'll be honest with you, Mike McDaniel, a young coach, right, 42 years old, got the job at like 39. I don't think he's the problem here. I just don't think he's the problem. I think the quarterback, the offensive line, and the situation is, and overall, if you fire Mike McDaniel in week 4, 5, or 6, I don't think you're going to have a coach come in midseason and change this offense. The offense is built around Tua, and now Mike McDaniel, a good play caller, isn't there to help Tua. Things seem to be already like falling apart. The Dolphins held a players-only meeting following the week 1 loss against the Colts. Things have only been brewing even more about potentially a new coach and what's going on in the locker room there. So I'm concerned right now. I'm concerned for Tyreek Hill, because even if you think that at 31 and a half years old, this guy still has some juice left in the tank, which we've seen these last 2 weeks, especially in week 2 when he had over 100 yards. The problem is just that everything around him doesn't seem like it's going to change. Like, I don't know how it's going to change at this point. Are they just automatically going to fix Tua? I don't think so. Maybe some easier matchups that are coming up will definitely help and be like duct tape for a couple of weeks. But at the end of the day, I don't see this team winning more than 4 or 5 games. And if that's the case, I don't see Mike McDaniel making it to the end of the year. So before everything falls apart around Tyreek in this Dolphins offense, and the fact that he's coming off of 2 nice fantasy performances, trade him if you can. Trade him for Brock Bowers, who's a buy low off of his knee injury. Trade him for Drake London, who's a buy low after a bad Michael Penix game. Trade him for Ladd McConkey, who's a buy low just because other receivers are playing well in his team, but now he gets an easier schedule and he's already averaging 60 yards per game. I would trade him for George Pickens. If I scroll down, I would trade him for Zay Flowers at this point. Try and trade Tyreek Hill before the wheels come off of this Miami offense. And honestly, try and trade Ashton Jeanty, but I will fully admit that it might be hard to trade Ashton Jeanty for proper value right now, because Ashton Jeanty himself, so far through 3 weeks, has not lived up to the hype of you probably spending a first-round pick on him, which you probably should have never done anyways. Like, he's coming off of a game in week 3 where you might look at the usage and go, oh, 17 carries. The only other running backs on the team saw 3 and 5. Like, that's not that bad. No, I mean, like, that's not that good. That's not that good. That means Ashton Jeanty, if we look in this game right here, according to Ryan Heath on Twitter, he received a 68% backfield carry share. Like, you see the number 17 and you're like, that's not bad. No, this is not good. 68% for a first-round pick is not great, especially when in week 1 and week 2, he saw 85% and 90% of the backfield carries. That means in week 3, Pete Carroll in this offense and Chip Kelly, we're getting Zamir White more involved on the ground. We're getting Dylan Labe more involved on the ground. Why is Dylan Labe seeing 3 carries and Zamir White seeing 5 carries in this offense? You spent a top 10 overall pick on Ashton Jeanty. Why in the world are you giving 30 to 40% of the work to other running backs? I mean, Chip Kelly literally came out and said that this is just called load management in basketball. This dude is your young first-round overall pick, top 10 pick in his 3rd NFL game ever, and you're managing his workload at this point? You do the opposite. You put on carries to the workload running back. So I'm deeply concerned right now that Ashton Jeanty is losing now carries to Zamir White and Dylan Labe, because over the past 2 weeks, he's already been losing targets, right? These last 2 games, only 58% of the snaps for Ashton Jeanty. That is absolutely panic level. This should be 70 to 80%. He's running only 41% of the routes. And here's the big concern. His target share is just right now 6%. More targets have been going to Zamir White. Even Dylan Labe has been seeing targets. These past 2 weeks, Dylan Labe and Zamir White have seen more targets and routes run than Ashton Jeanty. It makes no sense to me. It especially makes no sense because, again, this was a top 10 overall pick who proved in college he can catch passes. His sophomore year, 43 catches, a 13% target share, was one of the best pass-catching running backs in college football. Last year, when the dude was literally running for 2,600 yards and just had no time to actually catch passes because he was running for 7 yards per carry every time he touched the ball and 30 touchdowns, he still went out there and caught 23 balls on an 8.5% target share share, which is very good for a college running back. Why is he not being involved in the passing down situations? It makes no sense to me. But that is the assumption of rational coaching, and right now we're not getting rational coaching for one reason or another. Then there's also this concern. His usage is going down with other running backs being more involved, and Ashton Jeanty's offensive line stinks. He's been hit or at or behind the line of scrimmage on 11 of his 17 rushes against Washington. Jeanty has now been hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on 57% of his carries this year. The dude is literally getting tackled or having to break tackles before he even hits the line of scrimmage on more than half of his carries. Brutal. Look at this tweet. You might have already seen it from Ian Hartitz. I think it went a little bit viral. He says the percentage of rushing yards to come after contact among all running backs with 100 plus rushing yards this season. Okay, so like Jonathan Taylor, 77% are coming after contact, right? Makes sense. You saw him have that big run in week 3 for like 50 yards. Those were all after contact, right? He got hit immediately. You scroll down, Josh Jacobs, 92% of his yards after contact. Like, that's not great. We're hoping that offensive line can block better as they get healthier. Ashton Jeanty, 101% of his yards are coming after contact. That means that literally he's getting hit in the backfield behind the line of scrimmage on average this year and having to break tackles just to get positive yards. So many things are working against this guy. He's losing key snaps right now, just carries in general and passing down work, and his offensive line stinks. And in general, this offense is just passing the ball more than we thought. So I'm going to be honest with you. You might not be able to get much for Ashton Jeanty right now. Like, I'm not trading him for T. Higgins. I'm definitely trading him for Jackson Smith-Njigba. I don't know why somebody did that as of 2 hours ago. Alvin Kamara, I'm probably not trading him for. Like, we scroll down, Quinshon Judkins, I'm probably starting to consider trading Ashton Jeanty for Judkins. That sounds crazy. Definitely for Ladd McConkey. I'm probably considering it for Jordan Mason, especially if you need some wins these next 3 to 4 weeks before Aaron Jones returns. Kyren Williams, I'm trading him for. Drake London, I'm definitely trading him for. Like, if you can get proper value, which is going to be tough, I will admit it, but I would try and trade Jeanty right now. Now, before we get into this next player, a wide receiver you should consider trading, I don't know if you know this, but I've teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, and they're offering you a chance to win some real money. All right, here's what I'm talking about. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, whether it's your favorite team, whether it's a guy that you like that week based on his matchup, and that allows you to unlock the upside to potentially win some real money. It's as simple as that. There's no convoluted rules. There's no gimmicks. You just pick more or less on some players, and then you watch those players perform. And now here's the best part, a little bit of a bonus for you. New DraftKings Pick 6 customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This is your opportunity to put your football knowledge to the test. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code SAL. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. All right, now that wide receiver from a good offense is Khalil Shakir, because I'm not going to lie, Khalil Shakir, he did have a very nice week 3, but don't be fooled here, right? He had a nice week 3, maybe not very nice. Caught all 4 of his targets for 45 yards on Thursday Night Football in a very good matchup against the Dolphins for a touchdown in that game. So he comes out of this game with a solid fantasy day. 14 fantasy points. It's definitely strong in your lineup. You feel happy about starting Shakir on Thursday night. But without that touchdown, you're looking at another bad game of basically just 8 fantasy points, single digits, right? In week 2, terrible, 2.2 fantasy points. And week 1, he had a nice 12.5 fantasy points coming off of his high ankle sprain in the preseason, 6 catches for 64 yards. But let's not forget, that was a 41 to 40 point victory over the Ravens. That was probably one of the best offensive games we're going to see all season long. So that's probably not a good baseline. Like, even in that game, maybe he should have had more points, right? If they're popping off and everybody's scoring. So this past week, he relies on the touchdown to get in. I'm just a little bit concerned because what we're seeing right now. This offense so far this season has been very run heavy, and Shakir himself coming back from this high ankle sprain, maybe that's part of it, but he hasn't looked like the same player as he was last year. His targets per game are down from 7 to 5. His receptions per game are down from 5 to 3.5. And now his fantasy points per game are down from 12.5 to just 9. Look, I'll fully admit that maybe the high ankle sprain is the reason why, but he suffered that high ankle sprain like 7 to 8 weeks ago now. Even the worst high ankle sprains only take like 6 weeks to come back from. So I just think it's a factor of this offense. It's an offense that leads the NFL in rush attempts per game with 101, leads the NFL in rushing yards right now with 489, leads the NFL with 7 rushing touchdowns. Your quarterback is a rushing threat. James Cook looks like, arguably besides Jonathan Taylor, the best running back in football right now. Looks like he took another level up. So at this point, it's just really difficult. This is a run-first offense that's going to play with a lead in a lot of games. I mean, they are 17.5 point favorites against the Saints this week. You really think Josh Allen's going to throw the ball more than 25 times? Probably not. And that's just the problem right now, because in general, right, there was that game in week 1. If we go to the game logs here for Josh Allen on Player Profiler, there was that game in week 1. There was a crazy 40-point game, so he threw 46 times. Other than that, 25 times against the Jets, 28 times against the Dolphins. I would bet a lot of money that he's going to throw less than 30 times as a 17.5 point favorite against a bad Saints team. So the problem is just becoming like, how often is Josh Allen really going to throw this year? 33 times per game is skewed by that first game. What if he only throws 29 times per game? Like, if you look at the Bills' schedule this year, they're probably going to be 7 to 10 point favorites in a decent amount of games. In general, they're just going to be favorites in a decent amount of games. Khalil Shakir has never been this high volume guy, and we've already seen some more involvement from guys like Keon Coleman in week week 1, right? Dalton Kincaid last week has gotten more involved at the tight end position. So I'm just a little bit concerned here. It's not like this clear Shakur is going to go out there and see 7 to 10 targets per game because nobody else is involved. Keon Coleman is now healthy, taking a step forward. Josh Palmer has had some flashes, and Dalton Kincaid, they said last year he was dealing with injuries. They want to get him more involved. So far, he's been more involved. So off of this touchdown game, I'd be trying to sell Khalil Shakur as fast as possible. Trey Benson is a great guy to get back. Drake London's a great guy to get back. I'd rather Matthew Golden as well. I'd rather RJ Harvey, depends on your team. I think RJ Harvey gives you more upside. Definitely Tedero McMillan. Definitely Juwan Jennings. Try and make these trades right now before week 4 begins. Now, another guy I want to talk about, another receiver, is Devontae Smith, who was probably like a 5th, maybe a 6th round fantasy pick for you, which is a nice spot to get him in. And look, this past week, the Eagles finally gave fantasy managers what they wanted, more passing offense. And that led to both of these wide receivers popping off. A.J. Brown, 6 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown, 18.2 yards per catch. If you watch this game, by the way, A.J. Brown was a monster. Like, he had no business catching most of these balls. The defense was perfect on him, but he's just so damn big at 230 pounds, runs like a 4.3. Like, he's just insane. Throw that guy the ball more, good things happen. I'm not shocked that he actually paid off in this game. 8 catches, 60 yards and a touchdown for Devontae Smith. He finally comes through for you as well with a 20-point performance. That's exactly what we wanted to see. However, the Eagles were forced to do this. I mean, they weren't even passing the ball in the first half. Jalen Hurts had like no passing yards in the first half. They got down by multiple scores in the second half, so they were forced to finally throw the ball. You can see based on Ryan Heath's tweet right here, Jalen Hurts dropped back 37 times in this game. He only hit that mark 4 times last year, and the results were, as we just said, 20 fantasy points for Devonta Smith, 22.9 fantasy points for A.J. Brown. So in some ways, this is an outlier because last year he only hit that type of passing volume 4 times. And so far this year, if you look at Jalen Hurts' game-by-game box scores on Player Profiler, he's only thrown the ball 23, 22, and now 32 times per game. Even in this game where he quote-unquote threw a lot more, still only threw 32 times. You scroll over, still only threw for 226 yards. Like, the reason why it helped these wide receivers is they're the only 2 guys involved, right? The last 2 weeks, 67% of the targets went to Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. Then this past week, 63% went to those 2 guys combined. And that's probably going to be the case most weeks moving forward unless, like, Dallas Goedert breaks out for a decent game or Saquon Barkley's targeted more often. But at the end of the day, they were forced to do this. Against a good Rams offense, they were forced in the second half to play from behind. That's not going to be the case most weeks. Because when you look at the Eagles' schedule, they face the Bucs. Maybe they're forced to do it this week. Then they're home against a Broncos offense that has looked like it's been struggling. Then they face the Giants, the Vikings, who knows if they have J.J. McCarthy or Carson Wentz, the Giants again. Like, 4 out of these next 5 games, there's a decent chance the Eagles are up by double digits in the second half and don't have to pass the ball. And if they're up by double digits in the second half, they probably won't pass the ball, especially once Saquon Barkley starts being more efficient on the ground, which ultimately it's an inevitability until he starts breaking off some long runs. So off of this good performance, again, don't sell low, sell high if you can. I would trade Devonta Smith right now for Jacoby Myers. I would trade him for probably Ashton Jeanty, even though we want to trade him away. Definitely for J.K. Dobbins. I'd probably even trade him if we scroll up here for Marvin Harrison. Let's see if there's any other names up here. DK Metcalf's kind of like a 1-for-1 wash at that point. So there's a lot of names that you can get done. There's a lot of names that I wouldn't trade him for. Like, I wouldn't trade him for Zach Charbonnet, right? I wouldn't trade him for Drake May at this point. But Devonta Smith, a 5th or a 6th round value if we redrafted today, probably a 6th round value at best. I think there's some other names you could definitely get. So these are the players that you want to trade away before they potentially ruin your fantasy team because their value drops and then they just end up being like bad flex players or bench players for you. And if you want to see the guys you could potentially trade them for at the running back and wide receiver position, well, that's what these 2 videos released earlier in the week will help you do exactly. These are the running backs you want to trade for before week 4 and the wide receivers you want to target before week 4 as well. Check out those videos. I think they're going to help you out a ton. And I'll see you all in the next one.